Some brands are legendary. In every category, someone sets the standard, and some companies create raving fans. Join Scott Wozniak and Caitlin Johnson of Swaz Consulting as we dig into the tactics and tools behind great organizations. How did the legends do it? And how can you become a legendary brand too? Caitlin, fun to hang out with you again here.
Hey, Scott.
We are going to dive into some of the tactics. We've been talking kind of at the high level through the major systems of customer experience engine and how you create raving fans. We've even had some amazing times with some people doing it. But man, my passion, your passion, our passion at Swaz is not just motivational hype. We love the tactics. We love to get into how and the tools. And so I thought we'd start double clicking in some of these zones that, by the way, if you're a new listener and just checking out, you might want to go back and listen through some of the highlights, especially today. What we're going to dig into is the gear in the engine we call operational excellence. We say operational excellence is first in sequence and in priority. And the key question they're asking is, can I trust you? Now, it's most of the time when my bias, maybe it's just me, but my bias, Caitlin, is to think about how good it can be, right? Like when it all's beautiful and like we got really smart staff and we got proprietary tools and all this cool stuff. And it's not how good it can be. It's how consistent are we?
Yeah, behind operational excellence is the consistency.
So again, if you want to dig into that concept more and why it matters and why we say it's so first in sequence and priority, then go back and listen to that other episode. We're not going to rehash all that. But as a reminder, that's the critical, it's the biggest gear in the engine because it takes the most work and it has the most impact. People want to skip to the fancy stuff, right? Like, no, you've got to get the fundamentals right. How? That's what begs the question, how? And the first variable we want to talk about here, the first tactical thing to do.
100%.
I think is by far the biggest one. And that is if you want operational excellence, you got to hire with excellence.
Because behind every great organization is the people that have all of the amazing interactions with the customers.
Yeah, listen, I pick on McDonald's a lot. As a Chick-fil-A guy, they're an easy target, right? Like they're right there. And for the record, if you're listening, McDonald's is a good business with good people. I've had some of my friends work at the headquarters. They're wonderful. In fact, we've said many times in meetings at Chick-fil-A, we're like, if the McDonald's headquarters guys could ever get their frontline staff to do what they came up with, they'd be a serious competitor in terms of quality.
Oh man.
Can you imagine? They don't have good recipes and they don't know, it's not like the people at the top have no idea how to create a good service experience. It's that by the time it gets down to the people they hire, it doesn't.
The experience is lost.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how cool your strategy is if your staff doesn't actually do it with detail excellence. So hiring with excellence. And let me just be blunt. Like I was trying to come up with a polite way to say this, but I'm just going to say it.
Just say it.
Most American companies are not good at hiring. The normal American hiring process isn't working.
Right. Yeah, for 100%. I mean, you can tell the second you open the door to if there is, a brick and stone, like mortar building that represents your organization. You can tell just the vibe of the energy of the people that are in there. And then when your experience shows up and there's missing pieces, then it goes back to the people. So you've got to make sure you're hiring the right individuals who have the same intent, the same values, so much of the connection of why they want to work with you. And so having an organization be very clear about who we're looking for and why is step number one.
Yes. So at the end, about 6 months ago, Gallup did another poll. They're a big, company polling agency for the US. And they tested how many of the employees in American companies are engaged. So across the United States, they found 34% of employees were actually engaged in their job, like bringing their best, trying their hardest, working.
That's so sad.
1 out of 3. I mean, that is That's not
Mm,
good. That's
hmm
you wonder why like we're struggling. And I see this all the time because we get brought in to do all these cool fancy strategy sessions with leaders, offsite locations,
hmm
and they're often trying to solve operational hiring problem by getting smarter strategy. It's like we should come up with a cooler, cleverer technique. And it's like, actually, your techniques are fine. Your people don't want to do it. And you can
Right.
come up with 10 more cool techniques. They're not going to do them either. It doesn't really
Go
matter.
back to the basics. Yeah, the people.
So, in fact, I would say this if you ask me to pick between like the best people in the world, like great staff, or
Mhm.
the best management tools and systems in the world, oh, I'd pick great people every day.
Great people.
Now, of
Yeah,
course,
I agree.
what
I agree.
I'd love to have
hmm
both, right? That's the goal. We're here to
Right.
help
That
you
is
with
the
both.
epitome. Right.
And most of what we get hired for is all these cool fancy management and tactical systems and
hmm
yeah. No, all of that doesn't matter if you don't have the right person in the right seat.
Yeah.
It's so critical.
So I have a question for you. So we're filming and recording this in 2024,
Hmm.
couple years after the pandemic, and customer service is inconsistent
Yeah.
across organizations, right? So, because here I'm thinking and imagining our listeners might be like, well, okay, whatever system you have to share, Scott and Caitlin, it doesn't matter right now because people don't want to do it, period.
Mm.
And I mean, all right, there's some arguments to that. But if you go back to the basics of being clear as who you're looking for, so hiring for like the core behind hiring with
Yeah.
excellence, can we talk a little bit more about that system so that, focus on what we can control
Yes.
versus the outside elements of
Well,
things?
listen, I'll just acknowledge what you're talking about. Like hiring's hard. Hiring good
Mm-hmm.
talent is harder. 5 years ago, before the pandemic, I was like, man, this is the worst hiring market. Now I'm like, those are the good old days, right? Like it is just keeps getting more difficult to find people who truly care and want to get in on it.
mm-hmm.
And so let's just honor that. Like we're out
Mm-hmm.
in the field. This is not ivory tower consultants. Like we spend our time with clients I mean, in fact, we should probably talk about some of the actual multiple projects you and I are both on right
Mm-hmm.
now with our clients, helping them figure out how to hire better people and tweak the process. And so, but it's tough. Like we're there and I get it. I totally acknowledge that. I even honor the hard work required here. It's a lot. What that means for me though is not like, oh, gee, we should quit. Like, sucks. It's too hard. Here's what it says to me. The few companies who do figure this out
Mm-hmm.
have that much more of a competitive advantage.
Oh my gosh, yes.
When you're in
Yes.
an easy hiring market, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be professionally excellent. You just kind of open your doors and quality people walk in and you got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. Those are good days. I'm not opposed to having those days again.
Right.
But when you're in a market like this, if you just cross your fingers and go with your gut, well, Caitlin, you get 34% of your people who actually engage, right? Like what happens? But if you do some of the tactical stuff we're about to talk about, you can be the one company in your space who has 80, 90% of your people who are giving it their best and all in. And
mm-hmm.
then listen, let all your other competitors spend all the money on all the fancy stuff they want. You will win. Like that,
Yeah.
it only makes it more important to me when you're in a market that's really tough like a job market where hiring's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's real. It's tough. Okay, so how do we
How?
actually do this? I'll just say this: we talk about hiring for three traits.
Okay.
Most everybody only looks for one. We say you should hire for character, chemistry, and competence. And most companies only test for competence, right? Their job skills. Yeah, you should do that, right? I'm not opposed to that, but that is one of three things. Hey, can they do the job? Does she have the skills, right? Can he pull it off? Great.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also character and chemistry. Now, character is not generic character like, man, what a nice gal, right? She's so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sure. I love that. But there's a lot of nice people that aren't a good fit for your company.
Mm-hmm.
Character really is like the values, the driving passions, the kind of life defining things that would and each company has some specific character qualities that really make them unique. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say a kind of semi controversial version of this now. Like we will do this with clients. And oftentimes I'll be like, they have integrity as one of their core values. I'm like, you should take that off. Like, wait a minute. Wait, we
Well,
don't like integrity? What? Like,
yeah. Yeah. What?
of course we like integrity. But usually when you test for it, they don't have some sort of unique passion for integrity. It's like, well, we don't want them to
Mm.
lie and cheat. Yeah. Like, who
Hmm.
does? Right. Like, no,
Right.
cheaters. Right. Unless you're like the mob. Right. Like, if
So
you're in
you're
the
saying that's like a default. That's a default. Like it should
table
be there
stakes.
already.
Yes, we
Hmm.
don't like
Hmm.
sure, sure, sure. I'm talking about what makes you uniquely like passionate.
Mm.
Now, listen, if you're the kind of person and company where you're like, dude, we tell it exactly how it is, and we are crazy transparent, and we're so blunt, we offend people sometimes. We're
Mm.
like, we will pay a price to not budge in the slightest on here's our rule. Okay, then maybe you should put like hardcore integrity as one of your values.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
that's not
Hmm.
like a uniquely like, dang, that girl's hardcore about that, then it's probably not one of the unique things you list as a driving character quality that shapes you. You all
Hmm.
want integrity. Great. There's 100 things we could all list that would say, hey, these things matter to us. But just basic human decency stuff that we all care about, right?
Right.
Sure. I'll put it another way. In the United States, the predominant language is English. You could list on
Hmm.
every job description, we want you to be able to speak English. Like, okay, okay. The job description's in English, right? Like we
Hmm.
probably don't need
Hmm.
to also call out,
I see what you mean.
there's some
Hmm.
basics here. We got it. All right.
Hmm.
We don't need to say you know how to read if I'm giving you a
Right.
written job description. So
So get deeper then
yes,
integrity. Like what does integrity then mean?
what's truly unique about you? What is it
Hmm.
about you that not everybody's going to have that maybe even would push some of the candidates to say like, I don't know if that's me.
Yeah. So, okay, so I'm thinking like character strengths. What are some of those unique things? So you could play out with, for example, we're working with a client of ours who continuous improvement, growth mindset is a
Hmm. Hmm.
critical element of how they get work done because they want to make sure they're creating raving fans.
Yeah.
And so to create raving fans, they have their processes and systems for taking care of customers and their customer service. But if there's something that comes up where that requires or shows an opportunity to do a little bit more than the bullet points on the job description, so to speak, then they encourage their employees to have that excellence and continuous improvement mindset. How can we be better? How can we
Yeah.
wow our customers?
They don't want people who rigid discipline follow the same process. They want people
Mm-hmm.
constantly change the process, trying to figure out how to make it better. Now,
Mm-hmm.
some companies that would drive you nuts. In fact, some companies that might be illegal, right? Like if you work for the IRS, you probably shouldn't continuously change your processes.
Fair, fair.
But yeah, that's I know the client you're talking about, really driving factor for them is like,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. So if that's one of your character values that shapes their culture, and it does, then
Mm-hmm.
not only should you, step one, do you know your character quality? Step two, do you test for it? Do you have
Mm-hmm.
specific things in your job
Or
description?
before
Interview.
testing, yes. Because I was going to say, before testing, you need to actually say it. This
Thank
is who
you.
we're looking for. And then that goes into the job description. So we had worked with this client to open up their minds around their values that they live day in and day out. And then we cross checked with who they were hiring for, and the values weren't listed in the job description.
Right.
So already we were like, oh, we need to make that change so that you are attracting the right type of person and or intimidating a person
Mm,
from even applying. So
wait a
self
minute.
apply out.
Wait. Unpack that one. Like intimidating candidates away. This is a hard job market, right? Am I not
Yeah.
supposed to try to get as many people to apply as I can?
Oh, well, when you think about how expensive it is to hire the right people, you want to make, just like you want to identify your target audience of who wants your product, who wants your service. I think you should apply the same mindset with who you are hiring. Do you have the right target audience of an applicant that you're interested in hiring as a future employee invested in taking care of your customers? So,
Yeah.
Scott, I was talking with another one of our clients, and shout out to Joanne, who's been
Hey.
listening to our podcast. And she flat out told me, oh, yeah, I use strong language in my job description so that I can scare away applicants from applying because she knows exactly who she's looking for to create the raving fan so that she can dominate her industry. She is driven. Joanne's driven. And she wants
Brilliant.
just as driven employees to be supporting her with those organizational goals.
Joanne, well done. And yeah, everyone else should be more like Joanne here. Like, guys, not everybody's a good fit for your company. Not everybody's equally valuable. Hang on, I don't fumble this. I happen to be a
Mm,
Christian. I think God loves us all. We all have equal dignity and respect as human beings. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But we're not
fair.
all equally a good fit for this job or this company. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say, even if you want to just think kindly to the other person, the intimidating them away from working with you if they're not the right fit can be good for them because it'll push them to go to a place where they can find something that is their fit, right?
Right. Well, they'll become more engaged if you go back to the Gallup results, right? If
Yes.
you can connect people to meaningful work that aligns to their values, they will feel like they belong. And that's, one thing that we all want is to be seen and to feel like you
Yes.
belong to a group doing meaningful work. And so, if as leaders, we can do the hard work up front of really asking, who do we want in this position and who would excel in
Mm.
this position. Then
That's
you're,
the key phrase, not just who could
mm-hmm,
fill the slot, could they excel in this
yeah,
position?
right. And then what are the defining characteristics of the character? So going back to your three C's of looking
Yeah.
for character, chemistry, and competence.
And similar for chemistry. So characters, these deep driving values, right? Chemistry is going to be the people skills. And notice I say skills. Not talking about
Mm-hmm.
personality type here. You and I are both big fans of personality assessments and tests. We're both
Yes.
certified in all this stuff. We love doing these with our clients, right?
Yes.
Huge insights and unlocks. I mean, we could probably, you know what? We should probably do an episode where we just nerd out about the different assessments and our
Oh, I
favorite
like that.
why. So
Yeah. And why? Yeah.
that could be a lot of fun, but not today.
Okay.
So we love that stuff. And that's not what I'm talking about because
Mm-hmm.
I think it muddies the water to do personality types when you're hiring right now. Because we have too many biases in our head. Most of us, I'll give you a quick, easy example. Sales. Most people
Mm-hmm.
would say, hey, if you want to get a great salesperson, they have to be an extrovert because salespeople are extroverts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when
Mm-hmm.
you actually do a study, and they did this cross study of salespeople across multiple industries, it turned out that 61% of them were introverts. Now
Wow.
some of them were extroverts, right? 39% of
Interesting.
extroverts were crushing it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of introverts crushing it. If you think about it, there's some industries like business to business, big, slow relationship building deals. It's not like a, retail salesperson who's like a $10
Mm-hmm.
deal and you're never going to see him again. These are
Mm-hmm.
like slow trust building things. Man, an introvert who listens and
That's
connects,
powerful.
that's way more engaging sometimes than the guy who's constantly talking your ear off, right? So
Yeah.
all that say, we mess that up because we have all these biases that like, oh, this personality type has to be the one that maybe not. So I love personality types post hire as a way to
Okay. Mm-hmm.
maximize productivity and connect you to the team. And it's a wonderful tool. Pre-hire, I'm talking about communication skills, people skills,
Okay.
your ability to read the emotional intelligence kind of stuff, like
Mhm.
read the room, ask the
Okay.
right questions, tune in. And there's some overlap with values, like, hey, we click well with people who have similar values, but there's also this like just the sheer human communication side. Yeah, I might care deeply, but not be able to communicate or connect well about it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that has real operational impact. I mean, real, like, it speeds things up,
Yeah.
slows things down. If I'm
I think
about
I
to
have an
do,
example from I'm just remembering now another example from one of our other clients who this might be a bridge from character into chemistry.
yeah, yeah.
So one of their character traits is that they're looking for people who are humble.
Mm,
And so I wanted to understand more about that. And so as we were also working through, okay, well, what are your interview questions that you're asking?
yep.
One of them was, the dreaded question of tell me a time and when you failed and what you did about that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I cringe at that because I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to share a failure and show that I don't do great work, but it's not
Mhm.
about that. it's about what did you learn as a result and how did you solve the problem? So, how did you overcome that
Yes.
problem or failure or obstacle? And so, I was asking questions to this client about, well, why do you have this question on your interview? And they said, well, it's for us to identify if someone's humble. I'm like, well, how? Because that question makes people uncomfortable. And so they were saying, we want that. We want them to say, it here was a time in when I missed the beat
Mm,
and it wasn't great, but here's what I did to overcome it. So they wanted the humble aspect to say, yeah, there have been times that I have tried and failed, but I got back up. And so they were specifically looking for somebody to authentically answer that question.
yeah. We could get really deep on all these, but I will tell you, humility was one of the fundamental four values that Chick-fil-A has still.
Mm.
But when I was getting hired, I mean, this is 15, 16 years ago. This is one of the crazy humble tests. They put me through a humble test. Now I'm an extreme example. I was working at the high level of the company. It was 17 interviews over 5 months. I don't recommend that
Oof.
level of
Yeah.
intensity for every role in your company, but maybe for a major player.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point they said, "Hey, one of my interviews, we want you to go to one of your local." I was living in Virginia Beach and the headquarters is in
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta. And so I flew in for some. They even flew to meet it for some. But for one of them, they said, "Hey, would you just go to one of your local franchisees? We love this guy. And he could tell you a little bit about what life in the store is like because you're going to be supporting store guys. And so just go kind of talk to them and just spend some time with him." So I show up and the guy actually asked me,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, would you want to just like could you work in the back for a little bit and just kind of see what life is like in the kitchen?" And was like, "Sure, let's give." So he put me on the raw chicken breading table by myself. He
Oh
had like a
my.
17-year-old come show me, here's what you do. And so I was like, plastic gloves on, elbow
Gloved up.
deep into
Yeah.
like raw
Mm-hmm.
chicken. They dip it in the milk and egg wash and then the breading coater. And literally I had like
Mm-hmm.
this kid coming up being like, "Oh, you got to press a little harder, get up on your toes." And like, they left me there for an hour and a half and
Oh
nobody talked to
wow.
me. Just like crank out chicken, buddy. And then I went out front and sat down and they got me a little snack and I had a conversation with that franchise owner.
Okay.
And I later learned that was a humility test. How
Interesting.
did I
Mm-hmm.
act and feel after you took this fancy executive and stuck him in the corner with a
Yeah.
17-year-old correcting him on breading raw chicken? Here's what you don't do.
Mm.
You don't ask, "Hey, how are you a humble person, Caitlin? How humble are
Well,
you?"
of course I am, Scott. Well, but that's
I
not
mean,
very humble, is it?
right? It's like, well, I might be the most humble person I know.
Right.
In fact, I've got an award. I'll show you my humble
Friends
trophy,
and
right?
family say I'm humble all the time.
Exactly. Oh, that's not, no, don't, you
No,
have to ask for a
you have to look
story
for
or
it.
put them in a situation. And then you might get some honest information.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So chemistry, can they actually communicate and connect? And then yes, competence. All the stuff you're probably already doing, test for their competence. So they have the job
Mm-hmm.
skills, the
Mm-hmm.
history, and all. I will say this. Sometimes you can't get the perfect candidate who hits 10 out of 10 in all three. Again, we get it. We are in the trenches with
That's
our
purple
clients.
unicorn territory.
If you do, you like hire her, right? I don't care
Mm-hmm.
if you have an opening, you hire her.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, Caitlin, do you remember how I'm pointing at her?
Scott, you're pointing at me.
I know, because so one of our friends was like, "Hey, you two, you both do similar stuff. You should talk."
Right.
And after talking, I was like, "Yeah, actually, Caitlin, I know this
It's one
isn't
of
what
my
you called
favorite
me for,
stories. It's one of
but
my favorite stories, Scott. I'm like, let me tell you how I now work for Scott and Swaz Consulting. I was just having a very vulnerable conversation about, hey, how did you start your business? What does that
right,
look like?
we were just like consulting, geeking out with
Mm-hmm.
each other.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could semi brag for a minute, here's why, Caitlin. Because I had a written list of the core values that say this is what makes us unique and drives me
Mm-hmm.
and drives my team. And as you were telling me your story and we were wrestling through issues, it was like, check, check, check. Huh. How many people check all six of those boxes? That's
Ding,
not
ding, ding, ding,
common.
ding.
we should talk. Hey, you interested in
Hmm.
doing some work with us? And so here we are. But because I knew what I was looking for. When
Exactly.
you run across that person, you grab them. Like you're like,
Yeah, you're
listen,
primed for it.
we will
Hmm.
find something for you to do. You will turn
Hmm.
into a what do you know? You might end up co-hosting a podcast with them. Just hypothetically speaking, right?
True
Okay,
story. Hashtag
but
true
let's
story.
say, yeah, exactly. Let's say that you don't find a Caitlin Johnson. She's already
Mm,
taken. Sorry, guys.
yes.
But let's say you find like a 2 out of 3, or like, can you fudge it all? Yes. There's one zone
Mm,
I would say you can fudge a little on,
okay.
and it's competence, which is
Hands down,
not.
I was gonna say that was my vote too. It's gonna be
It's
competence.
backwards, right? Because it's
Mm,
usually the only thing we're testing for. So now let me be clear.
yeah,
I'm not saying you can hire somebody who's totally incapable of doing the job and you'll be fine. Like, no, no, no.
you're right.
What you can do is you can hire somebody with the raw capacity, the aptitude where they could do the job, but they haven't ever done it this way before. Or maybe they're from another industry,
Hmm.
or this would be like a promotion. It's the next level for them.
Hmm. The right size challenge. The right size
Yes,
challenge.
yes.
Hmm.
I'll give you a fun, easy example. So a lot of our clients have been in the financial advisor world, right? They're personal
Hmm.
financial advisors. And you know what almost all of them do? When they're bringing in new people into their company, new advisors,
Hmm.
they don't hire financial advisors. They hire really bright young people, tend to be young, don't have to be, but tend to be these young hot rock stars, right? Like they just
Hmm.
graduated with cool degrees and they're really smart and they love the idea. And if you don't know the financial advisor world, you literally have to get government certifications to be allowed to manage and help other people's money like
Oh,
this.
I did not know that.
Can't just convince you to give me money and I'll invest it for you.
Well, now I feel more confident with
Okay.
advisors.
So here's what they do. They'll hire these people and they'll say, Caitlin, you're stinking awesome. We will pay you a base salary for the next 6 months and do nothing. All you do is study and take a test at the end of it. And at the end of 6 months, if you can get certified, we'll switch you over and they literally are illegally, they're not allowed to do the job, but they have the raw
Hmm.
aptitude. And they're like,
Hmm.
that is a far better hire than trying to go get a disgruntled, burnt
Hmm.
out financial advisor from somewhere else, right?
Yes.
And
You should see
again,
my face now. I'm like Wallace and Gromit. I'm like, eee.
I mean, but that's what we do because hey, that
Mm,
guy's got all the skills. Uh,
hmm.
but you might want to wonder why is this the fifth financial advisor firm he's worked for in the last 5 years? Maybe there's some chemistry problems that he keeps upsetting folks, but he's really
Interesting.
qualified, right? I would
Hmm.
rather take the young guy who's got no experience and not certified yet and teach him the skills than try to take this other guy and change his character. Right?
Hmm. Okay.
So
So you can, if you can't check all the boxes, make sure you're checking character and chemistry, and then you can have some flexibility with competence if you can train because they've got the desire to and the passion and the motivation. Hmm.
yes, and okay, and then the last comment on this overall hire with excellence, like I think you can see if you're listening. I don't know how to do this in one interview. Like
Mm.
this is
Oh,
a
this
lot
is
of
good.
work. There's more things to test for and more
Yeah.
and maybe if you're entry level, you can do a bunch of small little touches, but even still, okay, so I'll pick up McDonald's one last time, right? So Chick-fil-A is 100% franchise. So the
Hmm.
actual hiring is done by franchisees. This is kind of US franchise law. And so the headquarters doesn't control this, but the headquarters is kind of like a consulting agency to all the franchisees, talking about
Okay.
tactics and tools, and then they do menu stuff, right? That's an
Hmm.
oversimplification, but that's kind of how it works. So I'm aware of the hiring process, and we talk a lot about this, and we give them kind of concepts, and they have to go figure it out.
Okay.
And man, the average number of interviews to get your first time job at Chick-fil-A right now,
Okay.
it's 3 interviews.
3 interviews
You're like a
for
19-year-old trying to get a first time
frontline.
part-time job working a register, right?
Yeah.
3 interviews, and then we'll find that's the average. Do you want to guess what the average number of interviews to get your first job at McDonald's is?
Oh gosh. 0. I bet you. Okay, wait, hold on. Right here, I bet you they have AI technology because it's an organization that has high volume hiring. And I know this
Mhm.
because I was hired before joining SWAS to bring on some of that technology at a big
Yeah.
retail organization. And you can ask that bot if there's any jobs available in the distance around me. Now you can then also get interview. So maybe one interview, Scott. Maybe they do one.
Zero.
Zero. They don't
Zero.
even do one.
They have you fill out an application. They have a bot
Mm-hmm.
check it. If like no felonies, we'll see you on Tuesday.
Wow.
It is crazy.
Well,
And
no
so,
wonder they have high volume hiring issues.
yes. So here's their strategy. Hey, this technical skills are not that hard. We can teach you all the stuff. It'll be fine. They're not wrong. What they're
Mm-hmm.
missing, Chick-fil-A is not testing for register skill in those 3 interviews. Those franchisees don't care if you know the menu or have our service techniques memorized.
Right.
Testing for character and chemistry, and then they'll put you through the same training program. You want to know why it feels magical in one place and icky in the other?
Mm.
Because one guy was really careful to bring in the people who actually like people,
Yes.
and want care about excellence and
Right.
actually want to do a good job in their life. And
Yeah. And live the words, my pleasure,
thank
right? Because you can say that and not mean it.
yes, you can. Yes, you can. And listen, nobody's perfect and nobody gets it right. But I would say McDonald's is probably a great example of the American average. They're not terrible, but 1 out of 3 of their employees, 34%, right, are actually giving it a shot. Chick-fil-A is probably in the 80 to 90% of their employees are actually trying hard and care and mean it.
Yes.
The difference is in the hiring. And again, I know the executives are equally smart, nice people. And by the time you get to the front line, one company is delivering on the cool vision and one is not. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
because the strategy is different. It's because the
It's the
hiring.
people.
If you want operational excellence, hire with excellence. I'll end with this. We'll close with this, Caitlin, because this is sometimes people get to this and they're like, dang it. Scott, I don't have time. That sounds cool and all, but I just don't, there's no way I could do that with my hiring process.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
usually I try to leave with an encouragement, but I'm going to leave with kind of like a blunt statement. Like, let me just be blunt. You don't have a choice. You're going to
Yes.
put in the time. Now,
Right.
you do have this choice. You can either put in the time to hire with excellence, or you can put in a bunch of time managing misfit employees. That you don't get to choose it where you're going to put in time, but you can choose where you put it.
Mm-hmm.
One time with an intense hiring process or lots of churn with an employee who's a punk. You're going to put in the time. You don't get to
Mm-hmm.
dodge that, but you could change what kind of thing sucks your time away.
Well said.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might want to sign up for our weekly newsletter. It's all new content with the same themes. You can subscribe for free and learn more about how we partner with our clients to build legendary companies at swazconsulting.com. That's www.swozconsulting.com. And if you want to get access to the actual tools and techniques that we use with our elite consulting clients, check out our online program at legendarybrandsacademy.com. That's www.legendarybrandsacademy.com. Greatness is possible. You just have to build the right engine.